In 2003, Metallica was building a multi-million-dollar masterpiece, and then they murdered it.
Whoa, sound good, huh? Whoa.
It was called Damage Incorporated, a brutal post-apocalyptic combat game that looked like Mad Max on steroids, had the voices, the music, and the full backend of the world's biggest metal band, yet never saw the light of day. So today, let's take a look at the game that failed and why Metallica actually abandoned their possibly most ambitious digital project to date. Here you go. On June 4th, 2003, Metallica fans were preparing themselves for the release of Saint Anger, and at the same time, a day before that release, the gaming world was rocked by a massive announcement. Vivendi Universal was teaming up with nobody else but the legendary Metallica to release a high-octane video game. And this wasn't just another simple rhythm game. It was a vehicle combat shooter featuring the band's voices, likeness, and of course, their music. And that move by Metallica was actually pretty understandable, given that at that time, metal games were having a moment. Iron Maiden's Ed Hunter had been a huge success, and Metallica was ready to one-up everyone. But let's not forget that this was a Saint Anger era, possibly the most experimental era this band has ever had in their career. And they've had a bunch of those. And at that time, the band was experimenting with a raw nu metal sound, no guitar solos, and a lineup in flux. As just a reminder, Rob Trujillo had just joined the band in February of 2003, right as the recording sessions were wrapping up. And this new and updated Metallica was the face of the game. In order to build the digital Metallica universe, the band hired nobody else but Climax Brydon, the studio that was a pretty solid choice for the band back in the day. Experts in racing games like MotoGP and Rally Fusion, they knew how to make vehicles feel fast and dangerous, which was exactly what Metallica game needed. And in addition to that, the studio has actually been around for nearly 5 years already. Which, let's not forget, back in 2003 was a pretty big deal. And so the game Metallica was going to release was titled Damage Incorporated, and according to the producers was actually inspired by the madness of Mad Max, the open world of GTA 3, and the atmosphere of Blade Runner and Waterworld. But according to some of the materials released years later, it actually looked like a post-apocalyptical action-adventure game centered around vehicle combat, which still sounds pretty cool. And of course, it was all supposed to be centered around Metallica themselves. All 4 band members were going to become game characters, wearing post-apocalyptic outfits, with James having a large machine gun, Kirk featured with a pet vulture, and Lars set to drive a massive truck equipped with giant megaphones. And even more, the cool surprise about it was that the band was actually going to record a special brand new song specifically for this game, of course accompanied by a music video featuring the game footage, with a glimpse of it being featured in some copies of Metallica's Saint Anger, where most of Metallica fans could have seen the promo trailer hidden on the compact disc. And here guys, super quick, I just want to say that all the footage and everything you can find here will actually be available for all my patrons and in the community posts on this channel. So definitely don't miss it, you don't have to look for it. As always, it will be there. And since we are having a little break here, I also wanted to point out that only a fraction of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to this channel. So if you're not one of those, and especially if this is not the first video you're watching here, I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing right now. Let's continue building this amazing heavy metal community together. And so the Damage Incorporated was actually set to be released in 2005. Yet amidst all that hype for the game, the project was simply cancelled. So what the flip happened? Sometime in 2004, the game developments began to stall, and even before the official announcement, it was actually cancelled completely, which was a result of a perfect storm of problems. Climax Brydon was a relatively small studio, and with all the hype around this game, the project was becoming too big to handle. And according to Andrew Borman from PTOP Online, the studio cited the Vivendi Senior Vice President for Worldwide Development, Michael Poole, as a person who pulled the plug on the project, with the reason behind it being quite simple. The publisher, Vivendi, simply lost interest in this project, which actually sparked quite a lot of discussions whether it was the result of a rather mixed response to the band's Saint Anger album and a wave of disappointment from some old-school Metallica fans, with the publisher simply not wanting to associate themselves with the negativity around that album. But in reality, I don't actually think that this was the real reason behind it. As first of all, the Metallica game was by far not the only unreleased game from Climax Brighton that was planned to be published by Vivendi, and if the publisher simply would not have wanted to be associated with Metallica, well, they still would want to publish the other games, right? With the real reason for the cancellation actually being the licensing issues that Vivendi was simply not able to uphold for any of their projects. But interestingly enough, there was actually a small spark of hope for this game to finally still be issued in the mid-2000s. A few people from the Climax team tried to salvage the work and pitch a version for the PlayStation Portable PSP, which I'm more than sure most of you guys remember was a pretty big deal back then. And they even tried changing the branding to save the game code that had already been built. And they actually tried doing it for a couple of years, pitching different projects, none of which unfortunately stuck. And in 2011, so 8 years after the initial announcement, James Hetfield himself confirmed that the game was dead once and for all. So that's the story of Damage Incorporated, the Metallica game that failed. The game that, in my opinion, simply bit on the wrong platform and did not see the major changes that were actually coming in the game industry. But what about you? What do you guys personally think about this game, if you remember the trailer? And do you think Metallica should be gamified, just like most likely Iron Maiden will after the announcement of them selling their shares to Pop House? Please let us know in the comments. As always, thank you so much for watching the short video, guys, and will prevail. Slava Ukraini!